He also worked with Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan and Billy Bragg.
I was a fan of the Faces from the age of about 14. The first time I heard Stay With Me, Ronnie Wood's guitar, frantic guitar, launching that song. And if you listen closely, you can hear Ian McLagan's Wurlitzer piano push his way to the front. It was Ian McLagan's Hammond B3 organ, really, that really set the tone for the whole thing. I think it was tough being in the Small Faces for him because he was brought in, he was the last man in. In some ways, he was the final piece for the jigsaw. The Small Faces were, as their name suggested, a bunch of short guys from London, except the keyboard player was a big, tall, lanky geezer. When he left, they needed to find someone to take his place, and in Mac, they found someone who's not only a great keyboard player, but also exactly the same height as the other three. And it's a great story he used to tell about when he first met them. He was in the office of their manager, Don Arden, sitting on the sofa, and he didn't even know what band he'd been asked to join. Suddenly the door opens, all three of them burst in, and they just laugh when they see him. They run over and they pick him up as like a long lost brother. And that was the beginning of their very, very fruitful relationship. When he was in the Faces, I think Mac was at the height of his powers. His great friend in the Faces was Ronnie Lane. Sadly, when Laney left in the mid-70s, the band kind of fell apart. Rod Stewart went off for a solo career. Woody went off to join the Rolling Stones. And Mac was left at a bit of a loose end. He made a couple of solo albums, but he ended up playing with a lot of great bands. Mac had moved to Austin, Texas by the late 90s to be close to Ronnie Lane, his dear soulmate, bandmate from the Small Faces and the Faces. Sadly, Laney was dying of multiple sclerosis, but moving to Austin, Mac had also moved to a place where musicianship is really, really respected, and he started playing in the bars there, playing regularly, because that's what he wanted to do. He was a working musician, he liked doing gigs, and I ran into him then, and Mac volunteered himself and his band, the Bump Band, to come out and do some American dates with me.
He's in a picture on a table by the bed, across the ocean, but he's always in her head. 2 years start dragging it for.
And at the end of it, it was such a lot of fun that I sort of talked him into joining my UK-based band, which is a bit of a commute for him. But he really loved it because there was an entire generation of music fans in the UK who loved his stuff. Original mods, revival mods, people who'd been into Brit pop, who loved what he did and loved him as a person.
I'd like to rest my heavy head tonight on a bed with California stars. I'd like to lay my weary bones tonight on a bed.
I mean, it was a lot of fun to do because he had such great stories. No matter what situation you found yourself in, he always had a better story about what happened to him before in more bizarre circumstances with people who were household names. So it was amazing to sit and talk to him. And he put a lot of these great stories in the autobiography he wrote in the late 90s called All the Rage. And I was looking at my copy that he gave me. He'd written in there a dedication to him, and he wrote, "This is the life and these are the days." And that kind of summed him up for me. He lived very much in the moment. Things had happened in the past. He'd been ripped off by managers. He had difficult times in his own life, but he managed to put all them behind him and live in that moment where you were with him. And I think that's a great epitaph for him. That's the kind of guy he was, and I'll miss him greatly.
When the crying is over, I'll be missing you still. When mountains and valleys become rolling hills, when I'm finally standing on that desolate plain, I have but one dream, time is over.
Ian McLagan, who's died aged 69. Now, Viktor Tikhonov was the ruthless but highly successful coach of the Soviet ice hockey team from the late 70s to the early 90s. Under his leadership, they swept almost all before them.